You used to say what you thought, then you stopped. Not all at once. The first few times she got angry at something you said, you wrote it off as a bad mood. The next few, you started choosing your words more carefully. By the second year, you were rehearsing sentences in the car on the way home. By the third year, you'd stopped raising certain subjects altogether. By the fifth year, you couldn't remember the last time you told her something true and difficult that wasn't already packaged for her acceptance. Somewhere in there, without anyone naming it, the size of you shrunk. Not in any way she would have admitted to, not in any way you would have been able to point to. It just happened over months the way water wears down stone. In the next 13 minutes, I'm going to explain to you how that happened. Almost every relationship video on YouTube right now will tell you it happened because she was a narcissist, or had BPD, or was avoidantly attached. Those frames have their place. There are videos on this channel about each of them, but none of them tell you the underlying mechanism. And the mechanism has a name. The mechanism is power. There are 4 kinds of it. One of them is what destroyed you. The other 3 are what you are going to take back. Almost every channel covering this material works the same way. Identify the personality type of the person who hurt you. Narcissist, BPD, avoidant, sociopath, gaslighter. Once you have the label, you have the explanation. Once you have the explanation, you have the path forward. No contact, gray rock, get a therapist, time. That framework has helped a lot of people, and I am not here to dismantle it. But it is incomplete in a specific way. It tells you who did the damage, it doesn't tell you how, and without the how, the same kind of damage keeps happening to you across multiple relationships, even after you've learned to identify the personality types involved. You leave the narcissist. 2 years later, you're in something else that has different surface features and the same underlying shape, and you can't work out why. The reason you can't work out why is that the personality types are downstream of the mechanism. The mechanism is power. Specifically, the kind of power somebody is using, and the kind of power you are responding to. If you can see the mechanism, you can see the pattern in any costume. The personality labels stop being your primary diagnostic tool and become what they actually are. Descriptions of WHO tends to deploy which kinds of power. The 4-power framework I am about to walk you through is not original to me. The clearest version of it appears in a 1987 book called Truth or Dare by Starhawk, and variations of it run through feminist political theory and management literature back as far as Mary Parker Follett in the 1920s. I am just bringing it into a relationship content register that almost nobody is using it in yet. The first kind of power, and the one most relationship content recognizes even when it doesn't use this language, is power over. Power over is exactly what it sounds like: the capacity to make somebody do what you want by controlling something they need. Their access to money, their access to their own friends, their sense of their own perceptions, their ability to leave the room, their ability to leave the house, their access to the truth about what happened last night when one of you was drinking, the capacity to define what is and isn't allowed to be said in this kitchen, at this moment, by this person. Power over has obvious versions and subtle versions. The obvious version is the partner who manages the bank accounts, decides what you can spend, where you can go, who you can see, what you can wear. That is the version most people recognize as abuse. And most people watching this will say it doesn't describe them. The subtle versions are where most of the actual damage gets done. The partner who, every time you raise something difficult, escalates to such a degree that you stop raising it. The partner who manages your friendships by being subtly cold to your friends until you start seeing them less. The partner who decides, by who they punish for telling the truth, what truths are permitted in this relationship. The partner who deploys the language of safety to end any conversation that might lead to her being held accountable. That's a power over move, even though it's wearing vulnerability's clothes. There's a whole video on this channel about that specifically. Power over runs on fear. Always. The other person stays in compliance because the cost of non-compliance is too high. The cost might be loud, The cost might be quiet. It might be 3 days of being frozen out, or a row that lasts a week. Or the threat, sometimes explicit, sometimes implied, that you'll be left, ruined, destroyed if you cross the line. The lines themselves are often unstated. You learn where they are by getting hurt when you cross them. What power over does to the person on the receiving end of it, over time, is exactly what you described in the opening scene of this video. It makes them smaller. They learn to say less. They learn to want less. They learn to take up less space. The shrinkage isn't a sign of weakness in them. It's the predictable outcome of a system that punishes them for being any larger. The first of the 3 healthy powers is power with. Power with is what you get when 2 people decide they're building something together that neither of them could build alone. And they agree, without anyone needing to say it, that the building is more important than the question of who's in charge. The household runs on power with. The negotiation about money runs on power with. The decisions about kids, about where to live, about who does what when somebody's sick, all of those decisions are healthy when they're made power with, and they're corrosive when they're made power over. A useful test for whether a conversation is happening power with or power over is to listen for the pronouns. Power with says we, even when we disagree. We have a problem. We need to work this out. We're going to figure this out. Power over says you. You did this. You always do this. You need to fix this. The shift from you to we is one of the most fundamental shifts in relationship language, and most couples who are in trouble can't make it anymore. Power with is also not the absence of conflict. 2 people deeply in love can disagree powerfully about something important and stay inside power with the whole time, as long as the conversation is conducted with the assumption that they are on the same team. Working through something difficult, with the relationship itself never being the thing that's on the line. The moment the relationship itself becomes the thing on the line, the moment one person makes the existence of the relationship contingent on the other person's compliance, power with has collapsed into power over. The second of the 3 healthy powers is power to. This one almost nobody names, and it's probably the most under-discussed of the 4. Power to is the capacity to see another person's potential and give them the space to grow into it. In a healthy, long relationship, both people exercise power to on each other constantly. She gets the qualification she's been working on for 3 years, and you genuinely feel taller because she did, even though it wasn't yours. To recognize who somebody is becoming and not be threatened by the becoming. To celebrate their wins without converting those wins into a competition. To watch them get good at something you're not good at and feel proud rather than diminished. In a healthy, long relationship, both people exercise power to on each other constantly. She gets the qualification she's been working on for 3 years, and you genuinely feel taller because she did, even though it wasn't yours. You discover something at 50 you didn't know you wanted to be, and she helps you make space for it, even though it changes the shape of the family schedule. Each of you, by recognizing the other as somebody who is still becoming, gives that becoming the conditions in which it can happen. The failure mode of power to, the way it gets refused, is usually subtle. The partner who never quite congratulates you on the thing. The partner who finds a small fault in the work you're proud of. The partner who is enthusiastic about your dreams when they're abstract and somehow gets cooler when they start becoming concrete. None of those moves announces itself as anything. The cumulative effect, across years, is that your potential gets quietly fenced. You stop reaching for the things you used to reach for, because reaching for them has stopped being rewarded by the person who matters most. Power to is the power you give. Power over is the power you take. Notice which one your relationship has, in volume, over time. The audit is sobering. The third of the 3 healthy powers, and the foundation that the other 2 rest on, is power within. Power within is the felt sense of your own worth that does not require external validation. The capacity to know who you are, what you stand for, what you want, what you're willing to do and not do, and to hold all of that steadily regardless of whether anybody in the room is approving of it in the moment. If you have power within, you can be told you're wrong about something and not collapse. You can be criticized and consider the criticism without your sense of self going underwater. You can be in a relationship and disagree powerfully with your partner and still know, all the way down, that the disagreement isn't a threat to who you are. You can leave a relationship that's killing you, even when the leaving is hard. Even when the partner protests, because the leaving doesn't threaten your sense of self either. Most men who end up in power over relationships have on entry, fragile power within. That isn't their fault. Power within can be built, slowly, through doing your own work, building things you're proud of independent of approval, having a few close people who know who you are, sitting in the silence long enough to remember what you actually want. It usually comes from a childhood where they had to earn love through performance, and the muscle that locates worth internally never got the chance to develop. The nice guy script I covered in a previous video is one of the visible signatures of low power within. The man who needs external approval to know he's okay is the man most vulnerable to a partner who can supply or withhold that approval at will. That's the structural setup for the relationship destroying him. The previous videos on this channel, on vulnerability, on belonging, on boredom, are all in different ways videos about building power within. This video is the framework that names what they've all been building toward. Now I want to put the framework together and apply it to the relationship many of you watching this are recovering from. A toxic relationship operates predominantly on power over. That's the diagnostic. Not the personality type of the other person. Many people with personality disorders run their relationships power with when they've done the work, but the dynamic. The conversations in a toxic relationship are conducted with the threat, explicit or implicit, that non-compliance will be punished. Over time, this trains your nervous system to expect punishment for anything that isn't compliance. Which means, also over time, you stop attempting non-compliance. Which means you stop being the version of you that has thoughts, preferences, and disagreements separate from her. While that's happening, the other three powers get hollowed out. Power with collapses because every conversation has become a hostage negotiation rather than a collaboration. Power to collapses because anything you start growing into gets met with hostility until you stop reaching for the growth. Power within collapses last and worst because the cumulative effect of years of receiving the signal that your perceptions, your needs, and your judgments are wrong is the slow erosion of the felt sense of your own worth. By the time you leave, if you leave, you have very little of any of these three powers left. That is the actual injury, not specific incidents, not specific betrayals. The slow drainage of three foundational capacities. Recovery, and this is the part I want you to take with you, is rebuilding the three. It isn't finding a better version of the same dynamic. It isn't learning to play power over yourself, which is what the manosphere is selling you. It is the slow, unglamorous reconstruction of power with, power to, and power within. That is what people mean, when they're honest, by getting yourself back. Here's the part of this video that almost no relationship channel reaches. Power over isn't just the dynamic of toxic relationships. It is, increasingly, the dynamic of the entire modern attention economy. And once you can see it in your relationship, you start to see it everywhere. Your social media feed exercises power over your attention. The algorithm decides what you see, how often, in what order, with what emotional pitch. It is not collaborative. You did not negotiate it. It runs on your fear and your outrage because fear and outrage produce engagement. Your workplace, in many cases, exercises power over your time and your emotional labor. Not all workplaces, some are genuinely run power with. But the trend over the last 20 years has been toward managed performance metrics, surveillance tools, demand for constant availability. The relationship between you and your employer slowly, quietly, restructures along the same lines a toxic personal relationship does. The news cycle exercises power over your emotions. 24-hour outrage. Manufactured certainty. The sense, every day, that some new catastrophe requires your immediate emotional response, almost none of which has any bearing on what you can actually act on. The cycle keeps you in a low-grade state of activation. The manosphere, the male dating advice industry, sells men power over as the cure for having been hurt by somebody else's power over. Be the one with the leverage. Be the one who can leave any moment. It is power over wearing the costume of strength. The cure for being a hostage is not becoming a captor. The cure is rebuilding the 3 powers. Once you can see the 4-power frame, the relationship video on the surface becomes a video about the entire modern world underneath. Reclaim the 3. Refuse to deploy the 1. Practical. 4 things, 1 for each kind of power. On power over, notice where you are deploying it. In microdoses, all of us do. The sigh that makes the other person stop talking. The silence that punishes. The small withdrawal that makes them work to get you back. Catch it. Stop it. On power with, choose every week 1 conversation you would normally manage instead of collaborate on. Have the conversation as we instead of you. On power to pick 1 person in your life this month and offer them 1 specific piece of practical encouragement. On power within, do 1 thing this week that is yours alone. Build the muscle in small reps. The muscle responds to use the same way every other muscle does. Do those 4 things, in some form, for a year. If anything in this video landed, the free attachment quiz on this channel is a small first step. 15 questions, 3 minutes. Link in the description. The framework you've just seen, the 4 kinds of power, is the recurring lens for the rest of the videos on this channel. Once you have it, you'll start seeing it in everything I cover going forward. Your ex made you smaller. The architecture of the moment is doing the same to most people most of the time. You can take yourself back. The work is the same in both registers. Begin. I'll see you in the next one.